welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
And this is season 3 of the podcast, where we take all of the wrestling streaming content out on the internet, we dump it in the randomizer, we fire up the randomizer, and it picks us shows. Could be weekly TV, could be a big major event, could be anything from any territory, anytime. And we take that, we look at the list, and we go through, and we start going through and watching all these shows and reviewing them here on the podcast. And we've had some deep cuts here in season 3. This is a pretty notable one. It's the second time we've visited a Saturday night's main event.
Yes, and this is from one of the later Saturday night's main events in the NBC run, if I'm not mistaken. And you can go back and listen to, in season 1, our previous episode talking about Saturday night's main event, where you go, Jeremy, quite deep into the history of Saturday night's main event, how it came about. We talked on that show about how Saturday night's main event would be what was on NBC once every quarter instead of Saturday Night Live.
That's correct. And so it was, kind of quarterly.
Yeah,
and...
I guess quarterly is a bit too... I'm giving it a bit too much credit as far as having an actual schedule.
You never knew when it was going to just show up. Like, as a kid, like, we didn't have the guide on the TV in the 80s and the 90s.
No.
It was, you had to, like, maybe if you were, maybe your parents had a TV guide, or you had something where you could say, oh my gosh, this is the week where we're going to get a Saturday night's main event.
There was the more generic version that was an insert in it was either the Saturday or Sunday paper here in the Chicago Sun-Times, and so that's how I would be aware. But yeah, otherwise they didn't necessarily promote it a lot on the syndicated shows. NBC didn't have other WWF programming, so unless you had access to a TV guide, or you subscribed to a wrestling magazine or something that explicitly talked about it, you really didn't know. And we talked about prior in season 1, when we reviewed an episode of Saturday night's main event, just how exciting it was, because you did not get competitive matches, stars versus stars, on TV much at all, if at all, to begin with, outside of the very rare pay-per-view events that took place. So these were must-watch shows if you're a wrestling fan, even if you were, as I've talked about on the podcast before, not the biggest WWF fan growing up. I always watched Saturday night's main event.
No, you're right, because it was the only opportunity to see competitive matches, and you were almost for sure guaranteed an angle. There was going to be a big angle in the top first hour. You were going to get a big angle, and so it was a can't miss thing. And I remember being a kid, I started watching in '87. So I remember being in a child in '87 and onward, getting woken up by my parents when Saturday night's main event would come on, so that I could watch it, because we didn't have a VCR here to record this stuff. So I'd have to I'd go to bed and I'd wake up for Saturday night's main event and then go back to bed. And
I had to sneak it. Luckily, my parents went to bed relatively early, but I had to sneak it because, well, my dad is a wrestling fan, still to some extent, and that's how and why he grew up watching wrestling, and that sort of got passed on to me. But my mom, not a fan of wrestling at all when I was growing up, so I had to be creative and find ways to sneak it. But I most of the time was able to find a way to watch it live, or sneak a VHS tape into the basement VCR, and stick a stack of books in front of the VCR so they couldn't tell that I was recording
to shield the red circle that shows recording in progress.
Much like I would do, total aside, but if I'd be watching something, if I had recorded like a hockey game or an auto racing fan, if I had recorded something and then that was on a channel that had a sports scroll, and on that sports scroll, it had, the scores for something else that I hadn't watched yet that I was recording, I would put like a stack of books or a stack of videotapes, so it would cover up like the bottom 1/10 of the TV. So it would block the scroll so I wouldn't be tempted to look, because I had a weird deal where even though I didn't want to see, I couldn't stop myself from looking, and I would spoil myself. Explains
awesome.
a lot.
I would, I remember the joy that would overcome you when you saw that there was a Saturday Night's Main Event coming up this week. And I couldn't imagine being the other. What if you were a big Saturday Night Live fan, and then
Which
you were
I
like,
was.
you were watching, and then they would always do the announcement, Saturday Night Live would be back in 2 weeks because next week is Saturday Night's Main Event. And like, just if you weren't a wrestling fan but were a Saturday Night's Main Event or a Saturday Night Live fan, I could only imagine you had the exact opposite reaction to my reaction. So that was always something I thought of.
And come to think of it, that probably is how a lot of times I found out about it, because I did watch Saturday Night Live a lot growing up with my mom, actually, as a little kid. And so, that probably is. If I didn't already know, I would know from that. But yeah, if you weren't a fan, you had to be pretty aggravated. There's going to be no Steve Martin or Dan Aykroyd or Belushi or any of that. Instead, you were going to see Tugboat.
Oh, we will.
Or Greg the Hammer Valentine.
We'll get there. So this,
not the king of improv.
This Saturday Night's Main Event, it aired October 13th, 1990. If you're trying to find this episode buried in the Peacock Network, season 6, episode 5, because Peacock is currently in the U.S. organizing shows in a horrendous way. But yeah, Saturday Night's Main Event from October 13th, 1990. This show was taped September 18th, 1990, so almost a month prior. And this was taped in Toledo, Ohio at the Toledo Sports Arena.
Which you would never know watching this show, because this appears to be one of the earliest instances of the WWF not referring to the name of the city that they're in, because apparently they think that city sounds too small time for a big national broadcast audience.
We open with a video of wrestlers dressed in German garb celebrating Oktoberfest.
God, I have a lot of questions here. So this is in 1990, correct?
This is.
Like, I know that Oktoberfest it's somewhat of a thing.
So it's a
People
big
like it. They go drinking, whatever. If you did not know anything about Oktoberfest, if you did not know that it existed, and then you watch this show, you would think it was the biggest holiday in the world. This entire show, an hour and a half broadcast on television, everything revolves around the fact that it is Oktoberfest. Every promo is filled with Oktoberfest puns. The broadcast duo, which we'll get to that in a minute, they are just nonstop with Oktoberfest, and then just straight up Germany and World War II and all these references, these constant cut-ins from the Oktoberfest celebration. Like, I don't know. I was not expecting this to be the focal point of this show.
The show needed a theme. Like, why are we forcing a theme on this show?
Can't it just be professional wrestling? Can that be the theme?
So weird that they had to force this Oktoberfest theme. But yeah, even all the graphics had a little Oktoberfest punch up at the end, and it was all Oktoberfest.
Isn't Saturday Night's Main Event enough of a theme? Like, the show already will look and feel different just because it's Saturday Night's Main Event. It's called something different. It's a different format than anything else they do. Do we need an additional theme? Apparently we do.
We then see our announce team. You mentioned them. It's Vince McMahon along with Rowdy Roddy Piper. Piper comes out wearing the lederhosen with no shirt. Yes, very gross. Easy Money thought that this outfit was a little gross.
I was about to say the same thing, that shirtless lederhosen is roughly approximate to chaps without anything else. Not good here. And speaking of not good, we'll talk about it throughout this show, but this broadcast duo, when you hear Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper, you think, oh my God, two icons. This has to be at least entertaining, if not great. It is not. I'll have specific thoughts once we get into the matches, but they are so hyper even by the standards of Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper here in this open. I do appreciate that the show starts with a rundown of each match. We talked about on the previous Saturday night's main event episode that we reviewed in season 1, how great it was that they had the fun like logo type font.
Everyone's got a logo and a graphic.
For each wrestler, everyone has their own like hand-drawn logo. And so I like getting that here. I like getting the rundown. However, as I look at the time bar, and remember again that with commercials, this was a 90-minute show, I'm a bit troubled by the fact that they're telling us I think it's going to be 6 matches.
Yeah.
Here on this broadcast, or 5 matches, whatever it's going to be. It doesn't feel like there's going to be enough time. So I guess we'll resolve that as we go through.
After they run down the card, we do get the great Saturday night's main event theme song.
Yes.
Love this song. We talked about it a lot in the season 1 episode. This is a theme song that takes me back to watching these shows. Just immediately, it's a time machine for me.
Well, yeah, it takes you back to watching the shows. It takes you back to being a kid, up later than you were ever supposed to be otherwise. Watching the shows, I can recall the ones that I did watch live where I didn't fall asleep, but you're up later than you normally are. Because usually if I watch Saturday Night Live, I'd watch it recorded. But I'd be up later watching it, and like you're awake, but you're kind of in that weird in-between state where, Ultimate Warrior is cutting a promo and it's so whacked out and you're so tired that you have no idea how much of it is real and how much of it your brain is just making up. It took me back for sure hearing that theme song as well.
We open with a Demolition promo. There's 3 members of Demolition at this point. So we get a promo from them. Then we cut to the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, doing a promo.
Well, this Demolition promo, it's Axe, Smash, and as you said, the 3rd member, Crush. And they talk about we're in a real partying mood. We're going to celebrate Oktoberfest Demolition style. And I'm dying to know what that actually entails. Crush ends this promo by saying that he's going to rip off the eyebrows of their opponents.
The Legion of Doom cut their promo. We learned that they cost Demolition the tag team titles to the Hart Foundation.
We learn it from them. They say, yeah, we cost you your tag titles. What are you going to do about it?
And then all of a sudden, the Ultimate Warrior pops up yelling Blitzkrieg over and over again.
Yes, and while I know it's another Germany reference and whatever, I hear this and I'm thinking, oh my God, the Ultimate Warrior is predicting the appearance of a great cruiserweight on Nitro some 8 years later.
So we go to the ring. Demolition, Axe, Smash, and Crush versus the Legion of Doom and the WWF Champion, the Ultimate Warrior.
I am offended. When you say we go to the ring, you are correct. We are in the ring, and Demolition is finishing their entrance. We only get to hear maybe 6 seconds of their iconic entrance music.
Completely robbed of the Demolition entrance. We didn't get the song. We didn't get the masks and the gear. We didn't get anything. We just got Demolition already in the ring like geeks. And then full entrance for the Legion of Doom and the WWF Champion, the Ultimate Warrior.
Separate entrances. We should mention at this point, the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, their entrance attire, which had always been the shoulder pads with the spikes, it had now grown to the point to where they had spiked shin pads, which is something I guess I wouldn't want to see someone like a UWF style wrestler, UWFI shoot style wrestler throwing hard kicks with the spiked shin pads. I guess that would be a new style of deathmatch wrestling. Something that also looks like it could be deathmatch wrestling is the Ultimate Warrior sprinting to the ring like a madman. He does not look particularly well as he's doing this, and I'm not feeling particularly well because this is where I noticed that he has the Winged Eagle WWF title, but it's with the white belt. The actual strap is white, much like his version of the Intercontinental title, and I am offended by this desecration of one of the greatest championship belts of all time.
Yeah, not only this one he was wearing the white, but he also had the winged eagle. He wore the purple winged eagle when he lost it to Sergeant Slaughter, and then we were just stuck with the purple winged eagle hanging around with Sergeant Slaughter. Looked super weird.
What, a purple championship belt does not match Sergeant Slaughter? Who'd have thought? Well, we'll have a lot more to say about that guy later on as well.
We will, yeah. So the Ultimate Warrior, WWF champion here, also understated makeup here. He didn't have the normal Warrior face paint. He had little tiny Warrior logos on his cheeks. That's about it.
Which is interesting, too, because he's teaming with the Legion of Doom. You would think he'd go all in on the face paint.
And they're taking on Demolition. This should have been just nothing but face paint everywhere. And Warrior's like, I'm going to tone down the face paint for this match.
I did like the fact that he had black trunks that somewhat matched the Road Warrior's long black tights. That was a nice touch. But yeah, the temporary tattoos on the cheeks were a little strange.
Before the bell, the Legion of Doom and Warrior, they knock all three members of Demolition to the outside, and we spot a young Dustin Rhodes at ringside. Pretty natural.
Yes, a very young Dustin Rhodes. A year before, he would be the natural in WCW, just coming off of a 3-month run in All Japan Pro Wrestling in the spring of 1990 as Dusty Rhodes Jr., and here he is. Front row in a purple shirt, much like the strap of the WWF title you mentioned a few minutes ago. And he is here, apparently, having bought a ticket, ready to enjoy some World Wrestling Federation action.
Smash starts with Animal. Animal's able to hit a power slam for a 2 count. Axe is in, and so's the Warrior. We get shoulder blocks by the Warrior, clothesline. Smash comes in. He gets slammed around.
More Oktoberfest references. My God, I'm losing my mind.
So many.
And the other thing I note very early on is that Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper, they're just screaming and growling constantly as they talk.
Vince is yelling a lot, and I feel like it's because he's shouting over Piper. Because Piper's also shouting. I don't know who's... They're definitely feeding off each other, and I don't know who's at fault. It's one of their faults.
No, that is mutual energy. Is what that is. It is, because before Piper even comes onto the screen in the open, Vince is he's that way. Thank goodness this was only a 90-minute show, and here without commercials was about 1 hour and 7 minutes, because if I had to sit through a 3-hour pay-per-view with just these two guys and nobody else to break it up, I don't know that I could do it. It's not good.
Yeah, if any of you listeners are fans of early 90s Roddy Piper on commentary, help me out. Fill me in. What am I missing? What? Because I don't get it.
You're not missing anything. They are objectively wrong. And I love Roddy Piper. We
love Roddy Piper.
Love Roddy Piper as a wrestler. Love him as a promo guy. There are times when he wasn't horrible as a commentator. But my God, here on this show, it is hard to listen to.
As the Warrior is just running wild on all three members of Demolition, he goes for the big splash on Axe, but Axe rolled out of the way. I know you love when a babyface misses a splash.
Yes, even more so here when this is inexplicably one of Ultimate Warrior's finishers is the big splash from the athletic toned guy. Which is an interesting choice, but yes, he misses it, much like a Ricky Steamboat going for a standing splash against Ric Flair some 50 minutes into a match. There ain't no way he's going to hit it, and he doesn't here.
Triple teaming by Demolition in the corner. Animal tries to break up the triple team as he's heading back to his corner. Smash gives him a kidney shot and knocks Animal all the way to the floor.
This was awesome. This was my favorite. It was like a running clothesline to the kidneys, and it just sends Animal all the way out to the floor. I love this.
Axe and Smash set up for their awesome Demolition elbow off the middle rope while your opponent's held across the knee of Smash there, the finishing elbow.
Backbreaker position with the second rope elbow drop. It looked like it was going to be curtains here, but no, Hawk comes in and makes the save.
Warrior tags in Hawk, and Hawk runs wild. Big shoulder tackle.
Huge, by the way, and I don't mean defined or cut. He's not fat by any stretch, but he's just as massive as I can remember. Like, you always think of him as, you know, the taller and at least slightly leaner of the two Road Warriors, but
he's
here
thick.
He's like not Scott Norton thick, but he's animal thick.
He is. Big shoulder tackle. He goes to the top rope, hits a clothesline off the top. He goes after the other Demolition members and tags in the Ultimate Warrior.
Well, yeah, he goes for the pin after the clothesline, but as they come in to make the save, as the other Demolition members come in to make the save, he immediately lets up off the pin and takes them out, which I like. That was a different spin on the heels coming in to make the save. Here, the babyface cut off the heels mid-save.
With the Warrior in, he clotheslines everyone. Flying tackle and a big splash on Smash. Gets the 3 count. Your winners, the Ultimate Warrior and the Legion of Doom.
He clotheslines everyone, and it's that thing that the Warrior do where he just keeps hitting running clotheslines, bouncing off the ropes, and he never stops. Like, he hits the clothesline, and then he just keeps running back and forth. It's a clothesline again, clothesline smash off the apron, and then, as you said, hits that big flying shoulder tackle, hits the splash, gets the win. Not even a hint of a Gorilla Press slam here in this match from the Ultimate Warrior, but he gets the win. I was amused that Axe, being the longtime veteran, the former Masked superstar Bill Eadie, he does the veteran thing here in the 80s and into the early 90s where he kicks out at 3.01.
So you've got let's take the Ultimate Warrior out of it. Just Demolition and the Legion of Doom, right? There was a build-up to this because Demolition was created as like a tag team. It was the WWF's answer to what the Road Warriors were doing everywhere else.
Yes, and it was created before the Legion of Doom. The Road Warriors were in WWF when, as you said, they were in WCW, elsewhere, NWA and elsewhere. And so it was a big thing. I can vividly recall.
Big thing in the magazines.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. I can recall, in PWI, The Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, there, those fantasy dream matches, who would win, and they'd have, Eddie Elner and Stu Sachs, giving their comments on, who would come out ahead. And then to see this here, in some ways, it was almost like a tag team version of the dream match coming to reality that we would have a year later with Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, which that obviously didn't pan out the way anyone thought or hoped it would. But it was the same sort of thing, where it was a magazine dream match come to life.
It was, and with all that buildup, and when we finally got it, I don't know what it was. Maybe because it was just like it was a different version of the Legion of Doom.
That's
right?
the thing.
It just never paid off like you wanted it to.
Nothing with them really did in the WWF, though, because the reason you wanted to see Legion of Doom, Road Warriors, anywhere was because they were big, scary dudes who killed people. And as we've talked about on previous episodes of this podcast, when they came into the WWF, they were just face-painted big guys who wrestled tag team matches like everybody else there did. And then you have them wrestling Demolition, and whatever you've conjured up in your mind's eye as a child of what those two teams fighting was going to be, it was going to be some semblance of a crazy, unhinged brawl. And instead, it was just two tag teams wrestling each other.
Yeah. So it never delivered on the anticipation and the hype. Mean Gene is outside celebrating Oktoberfest. We hear Roll Out the Barrel in the background. And
we also hear Gene say, it's the Bavarian tradition that continues. And the luminaries that we see here, this outdoor Oktoberfest beer garden, and they're all in lederhosen. It's the Genius, Mr. Fuji and the Orient Express. The camera then pans over and we see seated Slick and Akeem the African Dream dancing. And this is where
Akeem is dancing at his table. He's doing the dance at his table.
He's doing the dance that inspired my childhood dance moves. If that's not a tease to go back into the archives, I don't know what is. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, again, wearing lederhosen. And for some reason, the thing that absolutely killed me here was Bret the Hitman Hart, along with Jim Neidhart, dressed up in full lederhosen gear. That's ridiculous enough. And then he's wearing his own merch, his cardboard sunglasses, seated at the table.
Lord Alfred Hayes is drinking German beer, and we cut to him in the back. He doesn't have his earpiece in, so he can't tell that we've cut to him, and he's telling some other guy that the beer is not as good as the English stuff, and then they just throw it back to Gene.
The Burger Master is who this guy is referred to as throughout this. This is not the Shockmaster. We'll get to that guy later on. But yes, this will be a running gag with Lord Alfred Hayes getting progressively more drunk and not having his earpiece in. This show felt like, even for a WWF show, this felt like there was an inordinate amount of inside jokes going on. Things that were done to pop Vince McMahon.
The Macho King, Randy Savage, with his queen, Sensational Sherry, are carried out to the ring on a throne. If you go back to season 1, episode 1, you can hear us talk about King Mabel being carried out on a throne. This was not that.
This was not that, but in some ways it was even better. Why was it even better? One, because the Macho King Randy Savage is standing on his throne. He
stands on it, yes.
On the platform of his throne. And we talked about in season 1, episode 1 with King Mabel, how he was carried out on this throne by jobbers. This is done so much more ridiculously here, though, as all the jobbers are in their random, horrible wrestling gear, none of them looking remotely similar, as they carry Randy Savage out. This is quite the visual.
His opponent, speaking of quite the visual,
oh my gosh,
in red polka dots, it's the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, he's wearing black trunks with dark red polka dots, and then this like fringy Southwest pullover style thing that he has, which also is the black and red polka dot design. He's wearing a Western top hat sort of thing, and he greets Dustin at ringside before he goes in for the match. And so, yes, we shouldn't bury the lead here. We're about to watch Dusty Rhodes versus Randy Savage.
I'm super excited for this. And Dusty gives Dustin a big hug, and we see Savage out on the other side of the ring. He rips up a fan's Ultimate Warrior poster.
This is great. Yes, this is all to build up Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. Vince McMahon flat out says Savage is wrestling Dusty tonight, but he could be wrestling the Ultimate Warrior very soon. Then Dusty takes off this shirt pullover type of thing, and this may be the heaviest I've ever seen Dusty Rhodes as an active wrestler. It is a far cry from some 16 years earlier, or 13 years earlier, that Madison Square Garden Dusty Rhodes Superstar Billy Graham match that we reviewed over on the bonus content feed, where we remarked that while Dusty wasn't in cosmetically muscular shape, he was very thin by Dusty Rhodes standards. Here, he was not.
No, he was very big, and he was moving like he was very big.
Yes, he had a knee brace or a knee sleeve on one knee. The thing that's so ridiculous about this, though, as we watch this, if you recall, we've talked about before how at a certain point they put Randy Savage in a shirt, wrestling in a shirt, because he had gotten off the steroids and he didn't look quite as muscular as before. So we've got this visual of Randy Savage, who still is in very good shape, wearing a shirt in ring, and then Dusty Rhodes, who is decidedly not in good shape, understatement of the year, and he's out here in short, small black tights and no shirt at all. Like, I just can't fathom Vince McMahon looking at this through his lens and thinking, yeah, I made the right decision.
Dusty catches Savage with an elbow, sends Savage into the buckles, and Dusty's dancing.
Yes, he is dancing, and this is where I note that while there's a lot more of Dusty Rhodes than there was in 1977, he is doing the exact same level of dancing that he was doing early on in that match with Superstar Billy Graham. And Vince McMahon says, "Getting funky." Or what is it? "Getting funky down funky chicken." It's the exact quote from Vince McMahon. So he's enjoying Dusty's gyrations every bit as much as he did some 13 years earlier.
And so are the people, as it's Dusty Rhodes here at the start. A big backdrop gets a 2 count. Sherry then on the apron distracting Dusty, and Savage hits him knee first into the back. Sherry gets some choking in, and then we get jabs by the Macho Man. So just to recap the amount of awesome we've seen so far from Randy Savage, him bouncing around for Dusty Rhodes' elbows, and now him throwing his awesome jabs. This is Macho Man is still top of his game here in 1990.
Oh, absolutely. He's on the verge of being, massively de-emphasized, but he can still go 100% here. And all the trademarks that we've talked about, and in the several years prior to this, they're all still here. Just the acceleration, the completely unique movement you talked about, those jabs, totally different from the type of jabs that a Terry Funk, for example, would throw, but every bit as good. And another one of those guys that, while no one can actually pull off what Randy Savage pulls off, just all the little things you see him do here, it's another one of those things that if you're running a pro wrestling school, if you're training people, I can't imagine, those little things that Randy Savage does, wouldn't be things that you would show the people you're training.
So Savage throws on a sleeper hold, as he's never doing, and that's because there's nothing to see here in the ring, because the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Virgil make their way down to ringside through the crowd.
Yeah, from opposite sides. They're coming down the stairs through the crowd, and they each have a bunch of $100 bills, and they buy off all the fans in the front row one by one. They give them $100 each. These fans scatter, most of them kids, and that leaves an entirely empty front row, except for one Dustin Rhodes, along with Ted DiBiase and Virgil. They attempt to pay off Dustin as well. It doesn't go as planned, however.
Now he takes the money, rips it up, and throws it in Virgil's face. So he sits back down in his seat, and DiBiase and Virgil, after buying out the entire first row, sit directly next to Dustin.
They do not utilize the man buffer that you would see, for example, at the United Center at a Blackhawks game, when there's many empty seats, and guys will, for whatever reason, sit like one seat in between each other, leave one seat in between each other open. That was not happening here.
No, and Dustin had some great facials here when DiBiase and Virgil sit down. It was like a row of empty urinals, and those guys bellied right up to the ones next to him. That was the look on Dustin's face.
Was fantastic here. We should mention, for a young guy who had not, done a little bit of NWA TV, Florida Championship Wrestling a year or two prior, obviously went over to All Japan, but this was not a guy who was super seasoned, and being put into kind of a different situation, I thought he was fantastic, just cheering his brains out for his dad, his reactions to everything DiBiase and Virgil did. Great stuff here from Dustin.
In the ring, Dusty elbows free from the sleeper. He rolls outside to grab DiBiase. He's yelling at DiBiase as we go to commercial.
And as we go to commercial, I'm thinking, man, that was the least effective sleeper / rear chinlock you've ever seen, because it was on for what felt like days. Like the storyline progressed several plot points between when that chinlock got put on and when it finally was fought out from by Dusty.
After commercial, Savage is back in control. Dusty collapses after being choked out by Sherry, and Savage covers him only for a 2 count.
Dusty is tremendous. He's so limited compared to what he was even 5 years ago, or as we talked about, 13 years before. But he still is just an absolute master at just little body movements and things that he does that just compel the crowd to rally behind him. And it's not as if he was a really strongly pushed guy here at this point either in the WWF, but the people absolutely love him.
Savage over the top, clotheslines Dusty. They go over the top rope. Savage off the top hits the double axe for the 2 count.
When you say over the top rope clothesline, we should mention that this is not like a slingshot plancha clothesline. No. This is not a pescado clothesline. This is the thing where Randy Savage grabs sort of the back of the head, the hair of his opponent, and runs him toward the ropes, jumps over the top rope all the way to the floor while snapping the neck of his opponent, the throat of his opponent over the top rope in the ring.
Dusty fights back. He chops Savage in the corner. More awesome selling by Randy Savage here. Headbutt by Dusty, and both men are down. Savage tries to slam Big Dust, but can't.
This is great.
He collapses. Savage goes back to the top rope, gets caught, and at ringside we see Dustin has had enough, and we see him hit Ted DiBiase. DiBiase throws Dustin over the barricade, and Dustin takes a heck of a beating out here.
Oh my God. Yeah, they're absolutely ragdolling Dustin. Punches, kicks. Ted DiBiase gets a wooden chair, hits Dustin with the edge of the chair to the forehead. Dustin is bleeding like crazy. His shirt's ripped open. It is clear here, watching him take a beating as a very, very young Dustin Rhodes, that he is in fact his father's son.
Oh my gosh, is he ever? And he just a tremendous job bumping and selling this beating. And after getting hit with the wooden chair, he's bleeding on the floor. We don't get a good shot of it yet, but I can kind of tell. I was looking over there. I'm like, is he bleeding? Couldn't really tell. Off the top, Savage hits Dusty while he's checking on Dustin.
Yeah,
Savage.
Dusty moves so fast the whole thing is he's got Savage up against the ropes on the opposite side of the ring. And so he's beating up Randy Savage, and he can't see what's happening behind him as his son is being beat up. He turns around to appeal to the crowd, and then he sees what's going on the floor. And then he darts out like sliding baseball slide style under the bottom rope. And is checking on his son, and that's when Randy Savage comes off the top, as you said, with that double axe handle to the back.
Savage then rolls back in and is victorious via count out.
Via the fastest count out you've ever seen. We've talked about it before. In this 80s, early 90s era of the WWF, you always knew when a match was going to end in a count out because the refs were counting. It's not like normal where it's like every count is actually 3, 4, 5 seconds. Here, every count is like half a second.
Yeah, it's like they hit the 0.5 on the playback of a podcast there when they're doing their counts.
Or it's like for you old-time Sega Genesis NHL 94 fans, it's as if it's on Sega time. You're running down the 20-minute period takes like 3.5 minutes. Sort of the same deal here. But yes, I think the double speed for the podcast is definitely a more apt description.
Dusty's covering his son as DiBiase is just beating on the back of Dusty Rhodes. The camera's down low shooting this, so you can
like on the floor.
Yeah, it's like on the floor. Great angle, good production.
Dusty is cradling his son, and he's screaming, "No!"
He's wailing. He's wailing. No! And Dustin is bleeding on the floor. We get a great shot of Dustin busted open, his blonde hair with the blood in it. This was a great angle to end this basically what is the first, it's basically you got the champion, you got an angle, and now if you called it a night, you're not going to miss anything else the rest of the way, right?
Yeah.
But they tell you Hulk Hogan's coming up, so you don't want to miss it. So.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about before how Saturday night's main event, because the time slot, here with both of us in Chicago, it was 10:30 Central, but in the East Coast, 11:30 start time. So, they're sort of booking backwards, where your main event, your big stuff is happening earlier on in the show, so the biggest audience possible sees it. Like you said, usually a big angle would happen early on in the show, and it does here. This angle felt very not WWF to me. This felt like something straight out of like 83, 84 Mid-South Bill Watts television.
In the back, Sean Mooney. Who? Sean Mooney is with Tugboat and Hulk Hogan.
Doing the interviews backstage, Sean Mooney is because Mean Gene Okerlund is on location in Lederhosen. Definitely a downgrade with Sean Mooney here. And this promo, this is so bad.
All German references. This is so bad.
German references, and not even just Oktoberfest, but every German reference they could think of is in here. Hulk Hogan calls Jimmy Hart a teeny tiny wiener schnitzel. Starts talking about the Autobahn for some reason.
Well, what it is it's every German reference that an American who only has a superficial knowledge of Germany would come up with. That
exactly.
Nobody called Oliver Kopp for some deep cuts from Germany. This was all just superficial Americans' first time trying to come up with German things off the top of their head. Just ridiculous.
Absolutely. This is as stereotypical as it gets. Is kind of the best way to say it. We get Wunderbar and D-Day references. Tugboat looks so ridiculous in his gear here. It's just this like overgrown sailor boy.
Sailor boy.
It's really, really bad. He certainly does not look like Taiji Ishimori in his old sailor boy gimmick. Deep cut there for Big Audio Nightmare listeners. But
did Ishimori used to have? Did he wear his pants up to his nipples like Tugboat does?
I don't think he did that, but he did have the exact same hat, the exact same sailor hat. This promo ends with maybe the most uncomfortable line in the history of the WWF, and that covers a lot of ground. As Hulk Hogan says, direct quote, "What you gonna do when Hulk and the Tugboat Bavarian cream you?"
That is exactly what they said. The gist was they want Earthquake and Dino Bravo, and they have to go through rhythm and blues to get there.
Rhythm and blues. We'll get to that more as to who that is.
But first, we got to talk about the Bushwhackers. They're with Mean Gene and a bunch of cheese. They're making. This is basically. I don't know how long this segment was. It felt like 10 minutes.
At least 8 minutes.
Felt like 10 minutes, and it's basically nothing but cutting the cheese jokes.
Well, it's cutting the cheese jokes as the Bushwhackers are literally cutting cheese, and it's shockingly not good.
Funny. Not funny. I didn't laugh.
No. Then we get another Lord Alfred Hayes, same thing as earlier.
Now this made me laugh. I liked this bit. We cut to Al Hayes. He still doesn't have his earpiece in, and he's drinking and telling stories, and I like where this is going. We're just going to
talking about the Danube River. And then we go back, and the Bushwhackers are still now they're eating the cheese that they cut. So that's how we end this segment.
The Bushwhackers are so annoying. It's like
horrible.
It's like they're just told to be as annoying as possible. Like not like you know.
It's gonna be a weird comp, but they're basically their characters are like the 80s, early 90s version of what Brian Christopher's Grandmaster Sexay character would be. In that. It's just be as annoying as possible.
Yeah, there's
no more depth to the character than that. And these guys were crazy, bloodthirsty, barbed wire match killers.
The sheep herders were great.
Yeah. I mean, they were as scary as you could possibly imagine. And as a kid, some of my earliest memories of watching wrestling are like 85, 86, seeing them on TV just being terrifying. And then just a year or two later, seeing them in the WWF as these guys. So we go from that to a commercial break. When we come back from the commercial break, Rhythm and Blues are in the ring, and ostensibly Rhythm is the Honky Tonk Man, and Blues is Greg the Hammer Valentine with jet black dyed hair. And for some reason, on the back of his trunks, it has the title to the Elvis Presley song Suspicious Minds. It's just funny because Honky Tonk Man is the Elvis impersonator, and then there's Greg the Hammer Valentine with just one random song title from Elvis on the back of his trunks. I can't recall if whether, let's say, 2 nights later in Cleveland, he had, Love Me Tender on the back of his trunks. I don't know, but this was quite the thing. And that hair on Greg the Hammer Valentine, did that change your feelings on him as a wrestler?
Not even Greg the Hammer Valentine with a pompadour can get me to like him. Because first of all, he does a pompa mullet where it's like he tries to do a pompadour on top, fails. It's not very good. The Honky Tonk Man, significantly better. And the Honky Tonk Man has a pompadour. It's got the duck tail, like the duck ass in the back. And like Greg Valentine just has his regular old mullet here. This is terrible hair. Not even Greg the Hammer Valentine with a pompadour can get me to like him. And
a thought I had when I saw Greg Valentine here was that, man, this was a man who deserved the Red Rooster gimmick.
Yes, yeah.
This is who should have had that gimmick.
Our listeners might not know that I used to also have a pompadour. I was very rockabilly for many years, deep into the Chicago rockabilly scene for many years in the late 90s, early aughts here in Chicago. So I appreciate...
You know of which you speak.
Yes, I appreciate good hair and good pompadours. And not even this could get me to care about the Human Intermission, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
The other thing about his look, I just want to get in that somehow with the jet black hair, the lack of knee pads just seems so much more gross looking.
It is. Yes, you are absolutely correct.
I don't know why, but like I honestly, like I've known that Greg the Hammer Valentine usually did not wear knee pads, and it's always a weird look for any wrestler, but it didn't ever stand out to me. It's one of those things that I was aware of, but I never really thought about. And here, immediately seeing him with the black hair, the thing I noticed was he's not wearing knee pads, and this looks terrible.
So the Honky Tonk Man is trying to do everything in his power to get me to hate him. 1, palling around with Greg the Hammer Valentine. 2, letting him have that hair. And then 3, they come out to not the classic Honky Tonk Man theme song. They're using the song A Hunka Hunka Honky Love.
Come on, baby, hold me tight. Tell them the honky what you need tonight. We need a hunka hunka honky love. We need a hunka hunka honky love. You're the one you've been dreaming of. You know you got to have some honky love. Put your arms around me, whisper in my ear. Tell old honky what he likes to hear. We need a hunka hunka.
I still cannot wrap my mind around the fact that the level of hatred that you have for Greg the Hammer Valentine, that isn't how you feel about the Honky Tonk Man. Because I think most people, myself included, the way you feel about the Hammer is the way we feel about Honky. Talk about the Human Intermission. One of the least entertaining wrestlers that's ever lived.
No, Honky's been part of some great stuff. And
What great stuff has Honky Tonk Man been a part of? Other than the fact that you guys shared a hairstyle and got a picture together, tell me what quote unquote great stuff the Honky Tonk Man has been a part of. I want an itemized list.
If only we had time, I'd go deep into it, but unfortunately we got to keep the podcast rolling.
Oh, please, we could do a TV title time limit, 10-minute time limit, and have 9.5 minutes left over.
No, the Honky Tonk Man. Yeah, you're right. It's more of a we shared a lot. We had a lot in common. Good,
he
good
was an
guy.
Inspiration to you in several ways.
100%. Yeah, we loved it. They're the opponents of this horrible team, Rhythm and Blues, is the team of Tugboat and Hulk Hogan, and nobody will find it surprising to know that Hulk Hogan still extremely popular. Him and the Warrior are the two. They're still the two most popular guys on this show by a mile.
Yes, we should mention Tugboat's music is the most generic late 80s, early 90s wrestling music you've ever heard, with just a few random tugboat sounds to make sure you know that this is the theme for it. Apparently, after Earthquake injured Hulk Hogan, Tugboat started a letter writing campaign, and that is what got Hulk Hogan to return from his injury. And as we see them in the ring, just the visual of Hulk Hogan, this chiseled monster of a man, and then Tugboat, this rotund human in a child's Seaman costume, is a sight to behold. At this point, Vince McMahon just makes it even more ridiculous by referring to Tugboat, as he will many times throughout this match, as the Tugster.
Yeah, and Tugboat's outfit, these white pants that he's got hiked up to his nipples here,
and then the Where's Waldo tank top,
and this red and white striped tank top, it makes him look like he has California raisin syndrome, where you just have you're round on top and tiny legs, right? That's
I've got thoughts in a specific description of another man that fits that bill even more ridiculously later on.
so Hogan double clotheslines, rhythm and blues, drops elbows, rams their head together. Tugboat comes in. He's working over the arm of Valentine. Quick
Tugboat's
tags.
working holds on these guys. He's targeting a limb. He's arm ringers. He's wrenching on the arm. So I'm excited to see what arm-based submission hold that the Tugster
He's
has in
warming him
store
up for.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quick tags by Hogan and Tugboat working over the arm of Valentine.
Quick tags by Hogan and Tugboat, which shocks Roddy Piper, who was convinced early on in this match that rhythm and blues would be utilizing quick tags in and out throughout this match, as if they were the Rockers.
As if Valentine does anything quick.
True. Or Honky for that
Or
matter.
Honky.
Again, Honky, I know your brother's in hair, but not exactly a speed demon either.
Valentine tags in the Honky Tonk Man, but Tugboat catches him in a bear hug. Hammer breaks it up, and Rhythm and Blues start double teaming on Tugboat. They get the heat on Tugboat for a long time.
A long time. This is probably a 7.5 on the Marty Jannetty AWA 1987 heat scale as far as how long they beat him down. This did not need to go on for as long as it did, including through a commercial break.
They miss a double elbow drop, and Tugboat can make the hot tag to Hogan. He runs wild on everyone, even Jimmy Hart. Hart runs to the back, and Hogan's all over Valentine with punches from the mount. Hogan hits the big boot on Valentine. He's going to drop the leg, and Tugboat grabs him to show Hogan that Earthquake and Dino Bravo are making their way out of the back.
Well, at this point, though, I thought this was going to be my memory was a bit foggy as to when it happened.
The heel turn?
I thought this was the Tugboat heel turn, the transition to Typhoon. I thought that's what was going to happen here, but
I did too. I was trying to. This is what got me thinking. Like, when did that happen? Did that happen here? So I did not go and look up when the Tugboat heel turn actually happened.
Wow.
But
really slacking on your job here.
Because
not researching when the future Shockmaster became Tugboat or became Typhoon.
So apparently the officials just made Dino Bravo and Earthquake go back to the dressing room.
It certainly didn't make Earthquake seem all that intimidating. That all it took was a commercial break and several bow-tied referees to get him away from ringside.
We get an avalanche by Tugboat on Hammer. Tugboat grabs Jimmy Hart, and the Honky Tonk Man gets his guitar and hits Tugboat in the back.
He waffles him with this guitar, which doesn't break. This appeared to be a non-gimmicked acoustic guitar, not filled with dust. I'm very disappointed.
There was no powder, so I actually noted fantastic guitar shot here with no powder. This is great. And it confirmed my theory that you don't need powder in a guitar shot to look cool. A guitar shot is cool regardless.
I thought this guitar shot looked lame and it needed much more powder. This was the Japanese
powder.
table of acoustic guitars. You could not break it.
So Tugboat, after getting hit, goes out to the floor. The ref calls for the DQ. Hogan throws Jimmy Hart into Rhythm and Blues, and then Bravo and Earthquake hit the ring. All of the bad guys, all 5 of them, beat down Hogan.
They do the great spot where Quake goes for a splash, not the Earthquake, the running Northern Exposure, but a regular splash. And all 4 of the other heels, like as he's falling onto Hogan, like push him down more.
It's like a spiked splash on Hogan.
I love that. And then they become even more vicious. Each of them grabs a limb and they stretch Hogan out as he lay prone, and Earthquake is about to hit him with another splash.
Well, he's about to hit him with a Northern Exposure.
Yes,
but
the Earthquake, which if we were playing WrestleFest, the screen would be shaking as he jumps up and down.
But Tugboat breaks it up with Honky's guitar, chasing
indestructible
off the bad
acoustic guitar. He hits him, and that doesn't break there either. Like I said, it's the Japanese table of acoustic guitars.
He chases off the bad guys with it, and we head to Mean Gene, who's with the genius Lanny Poffo, to host a sausage stuffing contest.
And it's a bunch of double entendres about sausage stuffing. Gene says that Genius is a master of the art of sausage stuffing. Genius does a poem in which he starts talking German. We get the classic line from Mean Gene where he says, "The rules are quite simple."
So it's Duggan and the Hart Foundation on one side, the Orient Express, the Sato and Tanaka version with Mr. Fuji, not
so
Kato.
Bret Hart is in this sausage stuffing contest in full lederhosen. This man would be the WWF champion in 2 years.
They are currently your tag team champions. They stuff the sausage. Fuji then puts some other random sausage on the table.
Produced pre-stuffed sausage ostensibly in his pocket.
We can't determine a winner.
And we have a distracted official here because it is Saturday night's main event. And so they can't determine a winner. We go back and Lord Alfred Hayes is, you guessed it, even more drunk. And he's continuing to tell jokes to the Burger Master. You find this entertaining, Jeremy?
I do.
Not at all.
Drunk Al Hayes is my kind of Al Hayes. He's telling fishing stories now. This is great stuff. They cut back to the arena, and we've got a championship match. Intercontinental Championship. Your challenger, Haku, with Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Thank God Bobby Heenan is here. We need him here on this show. And his talk about a trip to Fashion Corner. He is wearing black dress pants, a tan suit jacket, and this shiny purple V-neck shirt. What a look here from Bobby.
That's like bedazzled along the along the neckline and everything. This it's great.
Looks much more like fabulous moolah ring gear than it does a Bobby Heenan top.
His opponent is the Intercontinental Champion, the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, and he's still being called Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah, he's it's before they took the name completely out and just called him the Texas Tornado. And he's in incredible shape, again, given everything that had happened in his life up to this point. He comes out with the Intercontinental title, that beautiful Intercontinental Championship belt, one of the best title belts in the history of pro wrestling. He's in the ring, and we see on the floor, the camera is next to Bobby Heenan, and Bobby's just yelling, "You want to give me that belt right now, and we'll call it even?"
I'll save you a lot of pain.
The whole thing coming into this was that there was an impromptu match between Mr. Perfect, the then Intercontinental Champion, and Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado. And Kerry Von Erich beat Mr. Perfect, but the excuse was that Perfect did not have time to prepare for the match.
We get a takedown, a slam, and Kerry goes for the claw, but Haku bails to the outside to regroup.
Yeah, Kerry's moving well when you consider the fact that he's missing part of his foot. He goes for a single leg takedown.
He's in amazing shape. He's moving, and the people are into him.
Oh yes, he was over in the WWF, even though he was past his physical peak because of the foot injury, and he had a lot of other issues. Like he was always, in a lot of ways, like Dusty at the same time, or during the same time period. He was a guy who was always more over than his push in the WWF, which we shouldn't be surprised by when you look at in his territory, in his areas, much like Dusty Rhodes, you could not have a bigger star.
Back inside, Haku gets a chin lock on. Heenan distracts the ref so Haku can get some choking in. Kerry then fights out, but Haku to the eyes, and he continues his attack.
I love Haku's Islanders style, and I don't mean New York Islanders, but he's still wearing his Islanders era pants, his sort of capri pants. I just love that look. They're very very colorful, and it's a cool contrast considering how much of a killer Haku is.
Yeah, we get a shoulder strike in the corner by Haku.
Well, this was weird. This was not what was supposed to happen. Clearly, Kerry Von Erich was supposed to move, and he didn't. So it's one of those deals where if the guy's going to move, you just, you're running into the corner, and then he's going to move, and you're going to run shoulder first into the corner. But Kerry doesn't move, so instead he just runs into him, not with really a shoulder block of sorts, but just
it's like
runs
a strike.
into him, and then they just reset.
More choking by Haku. A reversal by Kerry. Haku out of the corner, gets caught in the claw, but Haku's too close to the ropes, and there's a break. Spinning punch out of nowhere. The discus punch by Kerry Von Erich, and he gets ropes. The pin.
He stands Haku up and then bounces off the ropes, hits the discus punch, and then gets the pin as he's looking right at Bobby Heenan. This was great. However, the thing that was weird about this was we had a couple minutes prior, Bobby Heenan going into his pockets looking for a foreign object.
Looking for a weapon, yeah.
And like they're talking about it, they're showing it, and then nothing comes of it. This was weird.
No, it was just a way for Heenan to get caught by the cameraman and make an awesome face when he was busted trying to reach for a weapon. Yeah. Mooney in the back with Tugboat and Hogan again. And this time, so instead of doing a bunch of German references, this time they did a bunch of sea and ship metaphors. So lame.
This was the nautical themed promo. They're talking about, Hogan says, aye, Captain, steady as she goes. And then he basically becomes the genius and reads off a nautical themed poem. Then Tugboat starts talking about from stem to stern, brother. We get 20,000 leagues under the sea and Davy Jones locker references from Hulk Hogan. This is just really cringeworthy, and it's clear here why Hulk Hogan in just a few years as this Hulk Hogan character, by the time he leaves the WWF in 1993, that the crowd reaction to him would not be anywhere near as fervent as it was here. As times change, as the culture changed, as people changed, this incredibly corny Hulk Hogan act would not go over as well as it did still here in the waning months of 1990.
No, and it was weird because they did this big injury angle here with Hogan earlier in the show, and Hogan's totally fine and not injured here for this promo.
He held his ribs for like a millisecond at the start of the promo, but then he's screaming at the top of his lungs for the next couple minutes.
After commercial, Coco Beware and the Parrot Frankie are in the ring, and his opponent, Sergeant Slaughter with General Adnan.
This is your TV main event here. If you're talking about the main event being the last match on the show, which, as we've said, is not always the case. I mean, if you just look at the prior episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, the final match was Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich versus Playboy Buddy Rose. What was the prior one that we watched? That was
it was like Jimmy Snuka and Boris Zukov.
Yes, Jimmy Snuka and Boris Zukov going 1 minute 11 seconds from Des Moines, Iowa, about almost exactly a year prior. And so that's kind of the backdrop to here with Sergeant Slaughter and Coco Beware.
So Sergeant Slaughter's theme song is a long looping drum roll. That's it.
Yeah. The occasional whistle. It's just like drill sergeant music, if you can call that a thing.
There's no music. It's just a drum roll. It's just a drum roll. It is ridiculous that this is a theme song. Yeah,
It's ridiculous that it's a theme song. When he gets in the ring and we see him, it's ridiculous that he is in this spot. Obviously, they had made him the Iraqi sympathizer. If people aren't aware of that, the storyline here was that the ultimate American hero, Sergeant Slaughter, literally a character in G.I. Joe, turned on Hulk Hogan, turned on America, and became an Iraqi sympathizer as the Gulf War was getting underway, or was ramping up to the Gulf War.
Yeah,
it's bad.
This angle is so tasteless that this was like the first time where, like, you heard about a lot of fans like dropping off. Like, they're like,
it's jarring here too. When you hear this, you're like, wow, they were doing an angle like this in late 1990. Like, this feels like early 80s regional sort of xenophobic, weird storyline.
Well, and like, the Gulf War was like the first like televised war where it was like every night on TV was like footage of the war. This was like a real thing.
Yeah, and Vietnam was as well. I mean, Vietnam in a different way, but this was the first like live televised war. Yes, in Vietnam you had Walter Cronkite filing reports, and you got there's footage. But I mean, I can vividly remember as a child during the Gulf War, like watching the live coverage the missiles being fired from aircraft carriers, and then the live coverage of is it Bernard King and Wolf Blitzer like in Baghdad, and like the sirens going off and the missiles in the air, like that was like all happening on TV in real time. And then here we have this,
and everybody's watching it. Everybody's watching it, and so like this angle was nobody came to wrestling to see this. Like nobody
wrestling to get away from
that. You didn't come to see this. And
a lot of times I feel like wrestling angles that were based off of like nationalistic things or wars, they were always like after the war was over, and then you had like the lingering conflict still happened in wrestling somehow. Like I feel like that's how it usually was. Whereas here, this was, he said, not only was the war happening in real time, but you had this incredibly tasteless war-based angle happening as that was happening. Just a very strange decision.
Yeah, it was not good. This was not good.
Can we talk about Sergeant Slaughter's look here? I was trying for a few minutes to figure out, as I was taking notes and watching this match, what the best way to describe the physical appearance, the body type of one Sergeant Slaughter here in late 1990. The easy low-hanging fruit is to call him Dr. Robotnik, if you're a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. But really, when I looked at him, the only way I can describe him is he is a Christmas ornament being propped up by toothpicks.
Very yeah. That is definitely a good way to describe this look. He wasn't in the best of shape here.
No, he's round, and he has the tiniest legs you've ever seen.
Yes. He wasn't like as fat as Tugboat fat.
No.
But like he's just not he's not the Sergeant Slaughter that you think of the late 80s Sergeant Slaughter at all.
He's got a shirt on under the singlet. He does not look any younger here than he did in 1997 at that Hell in the Cell, performing medical service to a downed photographer.
No, he was in much better shape there than he was here.
I think. 7 years later then, and he looks at worst the same age here, if not somehow younger than he did here. Very strange.
Slaughter at this point is just months away from capturing the WWF Championship at the Royal Rumble from the Ultimate Warrior.
Via interference with a scepter shot from the Macho King, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. And then Slaughter would lose the championship at WrestleMania 7 in 1991 to Hulk Hogan.
The show that was supposed to happen outside of the LA Coliseum, but they sold so few tickets that they had to move it to the LA Sports Arena, and they used the excuse, the lie, that they had to move it because they were getting death threats.
Yes, which was not true. They were just not selling tickets.
Yes.
Coco starts out with some quick arm drags and a hip toss. We get an appropriate USA chant here, unlike the Starrcade 95 show in our Patreon feed. If you go listen to that,
Slaughter is moving here. He is bumping for Coco Beware. I will give him credit. I did not expect that.
Shoulder block, but Slaughter doesn't move this time.
It's hilarious because this is like one of those spots where it's a giant guy and a tiny guy. And here, while Coco Beware is short, he's a thick dude, and Sergeant Slaughter, while he's big, he's not giant. Like this looked like if Rey Mysterio was bouncing off of King Kong Bundy.
Yes, and drop kick by Coco. He misses a splash in the corner. Backdrop by Slaughter. He hits a backbreaker for a 2 count.
The great camera shot as Coco Beware misses this singer splash style move in the corner. And then we see as he's slumping down to the mat, this dramatic shot behind Frankie the Bird ringside as he's flapping his wings in the corner of I guess his charge, the man that he is managing, Coco Beware.
So Slaughter on offense, hideously boring.
This is as if 1974 Madison Square Garden WWF had been beamed into the Toledo Sports Complex or whatever the hell.
No, those guys would have said, Slaughter, pick up the pace. Slaughter, get some intensity behind these shots.
Killer Khan would have been screaming at him, not just during moves, telling him to pick it up.
Yeah, so Koko counters a backdrop attempt with the neck breaker, hits a couple of drop kicks, and then Slaughter catches Koko, and he hits a hot shot onto the top rope there.
He hits him with a hot shot. What proceeds to happen next is the lamest finish and finisher.
It literally says in all caps, so lame, worst finisher ever in my notes here.
So to backtrack, Sergeant Slaughter, if I'm not mistaken, would often use the Cobra Clutch.
The Cobra
as
Clutch.
his finisher.
I was totally expecting it here. Cobra Clutch.
Yes. I was as well, but this is the WWF, and two guys can't have the same finisher. We saw the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, earlier. He uses as his finisher during this time the $1 Million Dream, which is a Cobra Clutch. So instead of, I can't even bring myself to say this, instead of using the Cobra Clutch as a finisher here, Sergeant Slaughter submits Koko B. Ware with a noogie.
He does. In elaborate fashion, you see his middle finger knuckle protrude his fist, and then knuckle to the temple, rubbing it there, and then Koko quits via noogie. Unbelievable.
Yeah, how Koko B. Ware ever showed his face again is beyond me, because any baby face that is beaten via noogie by this old man, you're just killed dead 6 feet under. Like, if you look at the pantheon of similar moves, a claw hold, a nerve hold, a Tongan death grip, a mandible claw, way down at the bottom of that list, all the way down at the bottom of that list, so far it's off the page, would be this noogie.
We are not exaggerating. It is literally just a knuckle to the head.
There's no other way to describe it other than exactly that. That's a noogie. The only thing that could have been more embarrassing for Koko B. Ware as a babyface is if he had been defeated via atomic wedgie.
So then Nikolai Volkov is seen on on a platform in the crowd.
He's on the stage. It's where he's on the actual stage where they're trying to make us think the announcers are, even though they're green screened in.
Yeah, Nikolai Volkov waving the American flag while Slaughter is waving the Iraq flag.
It's a flag off.
Yeah, it's setting up what had to have been the worst flag match in history. I just saw Slaughter have a horrible match. The only thing that could possibly make it worse is throwing Nikolai Volkov in there. That sounds unwatchable. Horrible.
Yeah. Well, and also just the story of this. It is the American representing Iraq, I should say, and the Russian representing the United States in a flag match. And these two guys are both terrible professional wrestlers at this point.
Oh my gosh, that had to be terrible. But then we see Slick and the Anvil dancing back at Oktoberfest.
Yeah, we go back to Oktoberfest. Well, first, Vince makes this bizarre line as we go to Oktoberfest, and we're seeing this scene of Nikolai Volkov waving the American flag while Sergeant Slaughter is waving the Iraq flag. Vince says, and this is a direct quote, "This isn't springtime for Hitler," unquote.
He did say that.
What?
So we see Slick and the Anvil dancing at Oktoberfest, and
this is the best thing on this show.
Yeah, the people are booing Slick, and they're wrong. Slick is by far the better dancer than Anvil Neidhart.
As if you had any question that who would be the better dancer, Jim the Anvil Neidhart or Slick?
Yeah, so a food fight breaks out, and it's as lame as every food fight you've ever seen in the last 30 years, 40 years on WWF television.
Well, it's lamer because it just doesn't stop. It keeps going and going and going. My favorite part of it, though, is that for the first 3 minutes, I'd say, of this food fight, everyone else is up and they're running around. They're throwing food at each other. Akeem is just sitting down, calmly throwing food at people. And then I understand why he was sitting down, because he gets up finally to get more involved, and the shorts on his lederhosen gear are entirely too short.
The Ultimate Warriors with Sean Mooney. Warriors, he's now wearing way more face paint than earlier. Where was this face paint? That would have looked a lot cooler in the match of nothing but face paint, but no.
We should mention they're not at the beer garden. They're not part of
No,
the
this
food
is
fight.
backstage at the arena again. And he accepts the Macho King's challenge for the title.
Why did he have a white tape bandana around his head with an orange turkey drawn on it? What in the world was this? And I know we're talking about the Ultimate Warrior, so logic does not apply. But at first, I was trying to think, did he get cut in the match earlier? Is that why he has his tape bandana?
No, there's no way that this was filmed the same day.
No.
There's no way. Or it was filmed between like a marathon taping, and he changed his gear out.
You know what this might have been? This might have been the second Ultimate Warrior.
that is not
talking about childhood memories and the playground rumors that would go around about.
Oh my gosh!
That the Ultimate Warrior died and Kerry Von Erich replaced him as the Ultimate Warrior. I can vividly remember some fool trying to tell me that on the playground in like 5th grade, and I just told him you're dumb.
Piper in the back with Savage. Sherry says that Savage is going to win the belt. And she does this for a long time. And then Savage just jumps in and says that it's inevitable. And we talked about it before, I think, before we got on the air, that we were robbed of a good Randy Savage promo.
Oh, we were robbed of any Randy Savage promo. He appears on across 3 segments here, 2 of which are a match, and then one of which is this backstage interview. And we get almost nothing from him. How do you have Randy Savage on NBC, the National Broadcasting Corporation, and you do not have that man talk? What? I am offended.
Piper and Vince then recap the entire show. Gene and Al Hayes, Gene is with a drunk Al Hayes, and they're arguing, and then Gene dumps a bunch of food onto Al Hayes, and the show goes off
the first time, and then he gets him with it, and then you can hear like they're both laughing. Like they cut away from this a second too late. That amused me.
So they then tell us that the next Saturday night's main event will air after the Survivor Series in November,
which ends up being a lie.
A lie. This did not happen.
Technically, I guess April 15th, 1991 was after the Survivor Series in November of 1990, but I don't think that's what they're referring to. This is the final episode of Saturday night's main event on NBC in the initial run. That would be April 15th, 1991. So we go.
That's right. This was the penultimate episode.
Yes.
And then the finale was April of 1991. And then it would air a couple of episodes on Fox in the later years. But
yeah, well, in 1992, in January and October of 1992, those would be the final, I think you could call, real Saturday night's main events before they brought them back in more modern times. And they really served no purpose because you were basically already getting all that same stuff on any episode of Raw. But that January Fox Saturday night's main event did have Randy Savage versus Jake the Snake Roberts, which we talked in detail about that feud on the Tuesday Night in Texas review that we did over on the bonus content feed. This was the next chapter of that feud.
Yeah, if you're a new listener and you're like, well, what is this bonus content you're talking about? I'm glad you asked. We've got a Patreon, patreon.com/wrestling at random. That's where you get an extra episode of this show every single week. In addition to getting a bonus episode every single week, in addition to the free feed that you got every single Sunday, you have the option to be the randomizer. You can also choose for 1 month if you want to be the randomizer. You can pick a show for us to watch. Then you bump yourself back down to the lower tier, and you can continue to get all of the bonus content. Now, it's not just an episode of the bonus content. When you sign up for the lowest tier, you unlock the entire back catalog of all of our bonus content. We are I think we're on episode 40 something if you're listening in linear fashion. So there are hours and hours and hours of content in the bonus feed.
Basically, an entire extra season plus in the bonus feed, and it continues every single week, as you said, every Thursday. Even when we're in season breaks, we don't take a break on the bonus side. You continue to get new episodes. So yeah, it's all there for you. You can unlock all of it just with that first month subscription.
Yeah, if you don't want to go to Patreon, set up an account, all that's a hassle, and you're listening right now in Apple Podcasts, if you look in your Apple Podcast feed, the one that has this very show in it, you'll see there's bonus content in there for a subscription price. So if you click that subscribe button, you pay the same price as our friends in the Patreon, but you unlock all of the entire back catalog. It's not just one episode again, like I'm telling you. As soon as you click subscribe, it'll unlock the entire back catalog for you, and you can listen to it right there in Apple Podcasts if that's your podcatcher of choice. And if at some point we've moved all of the paid content to an additional paywall, you can support us there by subscribing at whatever future site that could be as well. So make sure you don't miss out. If you like this show, you're really going to love that. It is some of the weirdest stuff over there. The stuff that didn't fit into the season 1, season 2, or season 3 themes. Just
imagine that. Imagine something that's so oddball that it doesn't fit within the confines of a show called Wrestling at Random. And so it's on a separate feed. And there are some just straight up incredible, great matches, great events, some that the randomizer pulled, some that people requested. But there's also some really weird stuff that we had a great time reviewing.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on the show as well, so make sure you're interacting with the show via Twitter is the best way, at Wrestle at Random. Also Facebook, facebook.com/wrestling at random. Instagram as well, at Wrestle at Random. All the DMs are open. You can also, anytime you're watching a show, tag us in there. We love to interact with you there. And if you stay off of social media, I can't blame you. I'm proud of you. We can also get email as well, wrestlingatrandom@gmail.com. But we want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts on the show we reviewed, your memories, interact with the show there. I'm looking at you, YouTube subscribers as well. I get it. I know the quiet majority have overtaken us listening to this podcast via YouTube. You can also listen to the show there and leave your comments, subscribe, and not miss an episode if that's the way you want to consume it as well. Not gonna give you a hard time about it. I get more power to you. I'm putting it out there. You can listen to it there as well. So if you can't support us financially, we understand that as well. You can support the show by telling your wrestling fan friends about the show. We rely on your word of mouth to help spread the word. So tell your wrestling fan friends. Tell someone who used to be a fan that's a friend of yours that, hey, come take a trip down memory lane with us on this podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I don't know. Maybe you have a friendship where you're expecting them to turn on you. Like we expected Hulk Hogan to get turned on by Tugboat, and it doesn't happen. Maybe you're always constantly wondering whether they're just going to screw you over. Maybe you can make that friendship more formidable by sending them over to this podcast.
Tugboat turned heel on the Bushwhackers to join.
Wow.
to join Earthquake.
So probably not a main event angle.
Not a main event angle. No, that's how he became Typhoon. And so with that, we're going to call it a podcast. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. This always enjoy going down the Saturday night's main event rabbit hole. Great memories. Can't say this is the best show, Saturday night's main event, that we've seen. We haven't even talked about what we thought, by the way, was best or worst. Best for me, just seeing Randy Savage and Dusty Rhodes in there with each other. Honorable mention to Slick and Jim Neidhart dancing. Akeem dancing while seated earlier. Worst thing for me, God, that covers a lot of ground. And maybe there were things that were more obviously bad. But to me, it was Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper's commentary. It felt like my ears were going to bleed listening to it.
Best thing on this show by a mile is Dustin Rhodes.
That's
his,
good
his performance. Well. Dustin's performance is amazing. And honorable mention, of course, to Dancing Slick and Lederhosen. And the worst thing on this show is Sergeant Slaughter on offense winning a match via noogie.
Yes,
that is unbelievably horrible. Honorable mention, though, to the Vince McMahon, Roddy Piper team. They're just absolutely horrendous on as a commentary team on this show. It's terrible.
So is Sergeant Slaughter and his noogie finisher, was that the thing that finally made an appearance by Greg the Hammer Valentine not the worst?
Not the worst
for you?
It was definitely not the worst. I found something that's worse than Greg the Hammer Valentine on a show featuring Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Wonders will never cease.
And I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.